You got that tweet out loud.
We are live. Hi, everyone. It is Friday, November 4th. Thank you. I think we have a pretty short one this week. Dr. Pingle is at a conference with Gunjan.
Share your screen.
Yeah, let me share my screen. That would make the thing show up. These buttons are so small. Alrighty, let's get down to it. I have a really short one this week. I've been working on literature review for my research projects, and then also just for a course, the first year course that grad students take in geography. It's called Geographic Theory and Research. Basically, we all work on literature reviews, and the due date for that is Monday. So I'm trying to get that kind of solidified and everything. So it's been a lot of reading articles, a lot of kind of choosing specific research topics and research questions. So I probably could have had a little bit more to present on, but I was more of working on really trying to get this done and make sure that it's okay before working on the slides. So I can talk about more than what I actually have in terms of slides. So my project title, I actually changed this morning, but measuring human movement patterns in a shared indoor environment, where it says shared indoor shared space there. I was looking over Dr. Baird's proposal to National Science Foundation. He uses the term shared indoor environment. I thought he used the term indoor shared space, so I switched it to be shared indoor environment. But yeah, again, that's the project title for now. The project title is definitely subject to change and become more specific later on the road once Dr. Pingle and I really settled down on a specific topic, like what exactly I'm going to be really conducting my research for. The project proposal, I should have pulled this up and actually go to do this real quick. Is this yours, Shashank? Is this yours?
It's mine.
Okay. Do you mind if I open the project proposal? So here's the project proposal. It's 90 pages, but not a whole lot of not all of it is obviously content. Yeah, not all of it's actually proposal. There's 10 hypotheses, which we can see here. So these are kind of going to be hypotheses that our research questions end up stemming from, or at least originally. So Dr. Baird is the project lead, does a lot of qualitative style research where he does surveys and things like that. So a couple of these specifically are more qualitative, but then we can see some of them do have quantitative aspects, and then additionally some of them have spatial aspects. It's a very interdisciplinary project where we have people from geography, someone from mathematics, got a lot of professors from different disciplines that are working on it, and each kind of contributing their own thing. So Shashank and I, and then obviously Dr. Pingle, are on more of these spatial ones. We can see the 6 or the 5 that have that spatial methods. Those are kind of the ones that we're examining, whereas Dr. Baird and some others are doing more survey data and things like that. We're actually looking at the LiDAR scanners that we have set up in the CID building to collect that sort of data. So as of currently, the 2 of these hypotheses that I'm kind of focusing on for both my literature review and my research currently are, I guess, hypothesis 6 and hypothesis 10, which are resilience and materials. So hypothesis 6 is right here.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, let me do that.
I think it's down at the. Thanks.
So first, the use and meaning are associated with clusters and material resources. So whether that's things like furniture outlets, where the air conditioning units are, things like that, seeing how the use of the indoor space is changed depending on, like, in relation to the location of those things. And then secondly, that place response to disturbance associated with system resilience is basically kind of a function of time. This is kind of a very wordy hypothesis in a way, where it doesn't necessarily have like a strict meaning. But basically we can see that disturbance is being defined as changes in like occupancy. So a weekend would be like a very short disturbance where there's not class, but then people are still living there. And then bigger disturbances would be Thanksgiving break, spring break, winter break, summer break, where you have these really long periods where people don't live there. And what we want to see is how, or what I want to see is how differently things get used as like throughout the course of the week. You know, does activity pick up at the end of the week? Why so? Does activity kind of hit a reset switch before a break and after a break, where you have, you know, 4 months together, and then you have winter break that's a 1 month long break, seeing will the use of the building or will the use of the space in the CID building be different after that 1 month period when people come back from break? Will it be used more? Will it be used less? Will it take a certain amount of time to kind of ramp back up into like what was its normal use before the break? So just things like that, seeing how, I guess, different magnitudes of those time disturbances end up changing how the space is used. Back to my thingy here. So I've reviewed a lot of articles this week. I've probably done 20 to 25, somewhere in that range. These are some that I thought were particularly useful and interesting for kind of our side of the project. A couple of them are dealing with indoor mapping and just kind of in general, like what issues happen with indoor mapping. Some of them are more talking about terrestrial LiDAR. This one specifically talks about what advantages terrestrial LiDAR has compared to traditional like aerial LiDAR. Obviously for an indoor chair space, terrestrial LiDAR will work better because you can't go through the ceiling. Yeah, so goals for this week and goals for next week. Literature review, it's yellow because I'm still working on it. I wasn't expected to be done with it at this point, but I'm comfortable with where my progress has been. It's been my main focus for the week in terms of like anything outside of class and classwork has been pretty much just working on this literature review. So the progress has been good. I'm just not done with it. And then also over the weekend, once I kind of finish the literature review, I want to finish the mask layer, and I think we've now figured out a way to kind of do that.
Yeah, I don't see.
Don't say that.
So I was still continuing the analysis of like what I did last week. I extended it a little bit, like for those who like missed last week, I think Gina didn't. So this was what I generated last week, and this was the activity level of like Wednesday compared to a Saturday. And we had like, I think like this was a pretty good graph to see what we were trying to see. The people like moved differently on different days. And what I did next was like I did the same thing for every day, but as the graph looks, it's very noisy. And there are specific peaks and pits. And I just wanted like to put these together so that we could see there is some similarity in the movement. So when you look at all of these graphs like differently, so we can see like the movement pattern is different. And I did this for like specific days. So the sharp peaks might be due to an event or something, I'm not sure. If we look at this like multiple Mondays, multiple Wednesdays, we could see like some good patterns, but like for now, this is what I got. And what I didn't expect was the Sunday graph. It looks a little bit different than what I expected, because the midday movement is a lot more than what I had expected it to be. And also the other thing we want to notice is like, do you guys?
All my homies hate Tuesday.
Oh, Tuesday.
Yeah.
The data for Tuesday was not available for this week, so I just.
Okay,
skipped
gotcha,
it.
gotcha.
And the movement on Saturday is specifically more like specific, I guess. Everything else looks the same. There's a peak during the midday and then there's like nothing. So, but for Saturday, there's a lot of movement after 8. So. that must
What I
say-
think is interesting is this. The camera can't see what I'm pointing to, but this huge peak at
we are talking
Friday morning at 4 a.m.
Fire alarm? Oh. Warm.
about- That could happen.
That's the only reason
Maybe
I can think of,
I
that,
would
like,
ex-
everyone would be leaving the building at. 4.
I would expect it to be even higher though. Like I would think that at that time you'd have even higher movement than you would.
Maybe because they were all moving, it didn't like, I don't know.
I don't know, it's possible.
If it was a fire alarm, only the people living in the dorm would be moving out. For other times, it would be the students, and that could be it.
Was
It's
that this
possible.
Friday?
It's
It's
possible.
not this Friday, it was like the first week of October. I think.
I have a friend who lives there, I could ask.
Yeah, that could be.
See, like,
the
was there a
reason.
fire
Yeah.
alarm at 4 a.m. last month?
That would be actually true, because even this is like unobtainable at 4.
Yeah, 4 a.m. is just.
So I still
It's
think,
interesting.
I'm not very familiar with the place, but still like these graphs say some things.
Mhm.
And like even the peaks we just talked about, like it could be a fire alarm that makes no sense.
Another thing we can do is just go look at all the tips from like
Uh-huh,
a
we could do
specific
that.
date and just say. When, do you know exactly the day that was?
So I think it's 2, 3, 4, 5, this should be the 6th of October. I think.
Okay. I'll check it, just see if we can see the movement, to see like, is there anything correlating there?
The two things that I think are really interesting is really the bimodal
Mhm,
peaks in Monday,
mhm.
how it's like.
Yeah.
Those big dips there, I'm like, that's
This is probably-
interesting in
Yeah.
terms of, I'm guessing like
Yeah.
one wave of classes and then
Uh-huh.
another
Yeah.
wave like right after there.
Definitely.
The other thing I think is also interesting is kind of going on the same note as the Friday.
Mhm.
Thursday, still there's a fair amount of activity before 5 a.m.
Yeah, this is also like. This should be like 12 to 2.
Mhm.
Yep,
Which I'm like,
that's-
looking at, say, Sunday kind of makes more sense to me in terms of you're out Saturday night and then it turns into Sunday morning sort of thing.
Mhm.
But still, the amount of activity that's going on Thursday basically is Wednesday
Yeah.
night.
That's interesting.
I mean, but so I mean, the lounge space is getting used a lot. I mean, that could just be like people staying up doing homework.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what people are probably. The other thing I want to do, like, because I took like the data of same week, what I tried to do was connect these graphs, because the place where like, let's not talk about Monday, but the place where Wednesday like ends should be the place where Friday
Yeah.
starts.
No, I'm just looking at it now of the
Intensity.
axes are not the same across all the graphs.
Yeah, it's a little bit different even then, like the 11:59, let's see. But it's an average of an hour, so that might be what it is. But I was expecting it to be like starting with like 60, a value of 60.
Mhm.
It's a little bit higher, but. And this is like 59.6, this makes sense, where we Friday.
Mhm.
So my ultimate goal was to like connect all of these graphs.
Yeah.
And they should like be able to do it, let's.
Does that go all the way to like 20 hours, 24, or is it?
Yes.
That's, yeah, that's much strange.
The activity is like a mean of the whole room
Mhm.
for an hour.
Okay.
So the value like being a little bit off is, I think, okay.
I mean, it's like only like 3 or something.
A little bit, yeah.
I think it would be interesting to take more
Now,
points instead of just an hour. What happens when it's 30 minutes? What happens when it's 15 minutes?
that's something good to.
Especially, like, you should look into what classes, the timetable of classes in CID, because you know there's like ensembles and stuff.
Mhm.
And so like when wind ensemble gets out, different people are gonna be leaving.
Yeah.
Like, that's what the whole music department does their stuff
Yeah,
now.
that makes sense.
But no, I think just by having more points, be able to say, explain phenomenons like the Friday,
Yeah.
maybe a little better. When you just see, okay, at between some point of 4 a.m. And I guess that's what, 3:01 to 4 a.m. sort of thing, or whatever time frame, that something happened in there versus say breaking it down. I don't want to say minute by minute, but at least with
Half an hour or something.
a larger or I guess a smaller time period, so we
And
can
that,
get more
that I think
data.
will also smooth out the like very sharp.
Yeah.
peaks.
It'd be really cool to see more like, 10-minute, 15-minute increments.
The other thing I wanted to do was like, because this is only 1 week, this could be a particularly specific
Yeah.
data set. So what I wanted to do was like plot multiple Mondays, plot multiple Wednesdays. And so that if like, this is probably like, these peaks are probably end of classes. We could like conclude that if we have like multiple Monday data. And probably the students there have like a specific schedule on Monday.
Mhm.
So we could like see more, but this is like really
Yeah.
interesting, I think, for now.
I was gonna say, like you said, early October. So this is like theoretically right before fall break too, so
The fall
I
period
think it's a good
was-
normal week,
Yeah, that was like
the second week.
7 through 9th of October was fall break.
So this was like from 2nd of October to 8th of October.
Oh, so this is
Okay.
fall break.
Is this all great?
Like the last day, the Friday would have been the Friday of fall break.
Then I don't think you got the dates right.
So 2, 3, 4, no, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is what I think it was.
Friday's the seventh,
Yeah,
Friday the 7th.
7, 8, 9.
So then this is like 9th of October.
I'm trying to get the intensity files to load just to see.
Then I think this is fall break.
But it's not. Really usually do so.
It could be, but still like that. It's just a random week, like it's not necessarily like the end of the world sort of thing, it's just interesting to say, taken in the context of. This is one of those, what it has and called the break periods,
Yeah, the resilience.
the resilience, yeah, so. It would be interesting to know,
Disturbances.
Yes, there we go.
Disturbances, there we go.
to take this and then do, say, another week.
And then like, look at them together.
It would be interesting even to like take it on the absolute contrast of like, say, homecoming,
Mhm.
when everybody is on campus.
yeah.
So, I don't know, it's definitely interesting for sure, and I love seeing all of these next to each other. Poor Tuesday though.
The other thing I could like work on is like making the axis the same values
Mhm.
so that we could get relative.
I wonder if you could do it all in one graph and basically
Sure.
in the X labels, you're like, okay, here is Monday, and then you have the subtext in there.
So instead of like doing this, I just like connect the graphs. That's what you're saying. That's pretty doable, I think. Let's see. The questions I asked on this was like, are weekdays and weekends like different? And I don't know, the weekdays look really like similar to me. While they're like, if I compare a Friday to a Saturday or a Sunday, I shouldn't have put Friday in here, but like still, I thought these three were like peculiarly different from any of the rest. And I also want to know how like random this week is. So I'll probably compare it to the next week's. So this is what I did for analysis and data, and all of these data sets were like worked with a NetCDF file. So 1 hour of data is collected into a storage format known as a NetCDF, and that's what I was working on. NetCDFs normally are for weather data sets, and Dr. Pringle wrote a code and that converts this NetCDF to a NumPy array. So that's what we were working on to generate everything. But the thing about this is like, for the 6 days worth of data set, it probably took me like 3 hours to convert it into a NumPy array. So it's a long process. It's time consuming process. The other thing we're looking at is like the ZAR storage format, which is like said to be a similar, very similar to NetCDF. It's only like its specific capabilities are better than NetCDF in certain ways. So looking at these two like things, it's a method in an X-array, what do we call it? X-array file, let's say. So both of these were like similar methods. So I tried to do the same thing we did to convert it into NetCDF. And I was looking for something that said like dataset.toZAR. I found this documentation in the X-array documentations, but when I looked at it in the notebook, there's no such thing as dataset.toZAR. I failed to directly convert it to a ZAR. It said like there's no attribute to this data array, and when I looked for other things, like I found something that did actually work, which is first converting it into a data set. I don't know what this is doing, but this is first converting into a data set. And when I look at the methods in this data set, it gives you the two ZAR thing, and it makes a ZAR storage file. So the ZAR storage file is very different from what a NetCDF looks like. So when I did that, it gave me a ZAR container that's basically a folder. which has multiple folders and about 3 files. When I went into one of these folder, it gives like, this is very similar to what the ArcGIS database looks like when you open it. It's probably, I don't know, storage, something enterprise thing. So I was trying to work with this and I was not able to do much with the ZAR file, but I was able to convert it into a NumPy array. And the good thing about this is, let's start with the bad thing. The bad thing about this is like when I'm just opening a ZAR file, it gives me a task array. I'll be talking more about this. When I'm trying to convert it into NumPy, it actually converts this task array to so NANs are like not a number values, but it also has a bunch of hidden number values in between. And it stores all the date timestamps, it stores all the coordinate things, and it stores all the values inside each pixel. So the bad thing about it was I didn't know what I had. And the good thing about it was like converting it into a NumPy array is basically a function that's like as NumPy, and the time it took to like convert it into NumPy is like 114 milliseconds, which is less than a second. This was for like not 3600 files, but I think this was much better than what we were doing with NetCDF file. And when I like just used a random test to like compute the mean of this, it gave me a value that's like 62.84, but it does not have anything else. So I'm not sure if this is the mean of an image or mean of the mean of every image. So that's what I'll be like broadly looking at, and I'll do this for multiple files just to test out the time taken to convert it into NumPy. And I'm also working with the literature review as Addison is. I'm using the same proposal, and I'm looking at a few literature review that's like more based on storage formats and how we could like detect objects in those images, because even though we are working on the same project, we're probably dealing with different things. He's looking at particular individual behavior of people, where I'm looking at how to identify those people and what's the aggregate behavior of people. So this is a paper that I think I'll be probably working with Dask, because I showed you guys that there's a Dask array that I found and I got into reading this. So Dask is like a basic specification that's built to handle multiple processes by using parallel processing. So all of our computers normally have multiple cores at this time. And whenever we are working with NumPy and Pandas, it just like sequentially arranges the tasks we need to do. But Dask is improvement on that, where it like takes a big set of words and arranges it in like parallel cores, and it increases the efficiency and decreases the time of the tasks in hand. So this is a paper that's really good, I think, for anyone who wants to do like parallel computation. I didn't get the specifics of like everything that they talked about, but my major takeaway was like it enables task scheduling and it enables parallelism in NumPy arrays. So I got like specific notes on what were like more important for me in this paper, and there's like other things that's like bigger Spartan and this array that do the same thing as Dask does. The only thing that it is not able to handle is it needs to know the shape of the NumPy array that's being calculated before doing the operation. So this might be one of the limitations of using a Dask array, and these are like the links for anyone who is interested. So so talking about my goals, I am like Addison, we're working on the project for we need to finalize it and we'll probably be submitting it this week. And then the NetCDF files, the ZAR files, I'll still be looking at it. And the major goal for this weekend is like to complete the literature review. And while doing that, I'll probably work on writing my proposal. So that's it for me.
Can you go back to 11? Because I see it over here. The second set over here, it's something's file downloaded as a ZATTRS file. What is that? Do you know?
Attributes. Yeah.
Could be Z attributes.
Hmm,
This is like Z array and this is V attributes.
okay,
Probably.
interesting.
I just metadata.
There was no way I could like open this in anything. I don't know. And
I just saw it and it caught my eye. And I think it's interesting also too how there are some files in there where it's like there's 0 files, but there are 40 gigabytes
there's
or
probably files stored in binary. I'm not sure. I know I've like come across zero files before, but I have no way of like seeing it. Maybe if I try to put it in a notepad. But this is really cool.
Yeah, what are those files?
So the folder called A is a ZAR container. And like normally in an FCDF, what it will do is like arrange everything and in a face cube, if I can call it like face cube, and it has things like bands because we are collecting images in RGB. And the files are like different timestamps, so every second. And the spatial difference should be coordinates, and the time is the container of the date stamps I put it in. But I have no idea about what anything is.
It's okay, actually, I
But
didn't
this
know
is
if you
like-
knew.
it's cool stuff.
That's very,
So that's it.
woohoo.
It seems like the 0 file and the 1 file are corresponding to like the last digit of little names. And it's like
Mm,
something like the 1 is a 1 file, and 0 file, but I don't know what that means.
If like, if these are binary, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2. And so on, right?
Yeah, it's going to 3 as well, so it looks like it's using like 2 bits and then the second to last digit and then like 1 is the strange.
It is very strange.
Going to like the ZAR documentation, it would probably tell you.
Yeah,
but-
I think that's what I'm looking at. I just try to like play with it and like look at the notebook, just not looking at what it looks in the file explorer, but looking at the interfaces of it. But the main thing is what like put me off. Like I don't know. I got a value, but there's nothing else. But if this is what I think it is, it might be actually of use to us because we do not like actually want to see what every image looks like, but we would just want the statistics behind like a bunch of images. This might be actually handy. Chris, have you not really-
I mean, yeah, I don't have a presentation. I probably could show you what I was doing, but that would require me to, yeah.
yeah.
Should be downloaded.
I do have one short thing, but I'll let Rebecca present first. It's a rush. Ooh. Pictures.
Yeah, I've got more pictures. Okay, so this week, goal was. We gave up on recasting for a little bit to try and go for a different approach, which was like colliding. Because we've been playing around with this application called A Painter, which is just like a VR, like 3D, like MS Paint. And it's really cool. And we're kind of just like trying to model that to just like paint point clouds essentially. And so the way that that works is you're not like casting arrays anywhere, just wherever your controller is, it just paints it right there. And so the thing I'm trying now is to basically have like a little like sphere brush or like whatever's intersecting that sphere will get like painted and try to paint it like that. This is not as good of a drawing as last week, so I'm sorry, but I tried.
And what's it supposed to be?
This is supposed to be a point cloud, and
Okay,
then this is like your controller, and whatever is like intersecting that will like select.
okay.
So I tried that. And my first attempt ended up with a really strange, like I tried to have we had the point cloud in the thing, and I tried to put a sphere in the scene too. And it made the sphere, but it also made a point cloud sphere. And I don't know why. I think it's because this here is like the whole scene. And to get the poetry loader, we had the poetry loader like as the scene. So then the sphere had to go inside the poetry loader, which might have created the sphere. But the weird thing is that if I moved back and forth in the scene, if I moved farther away, the point sphere would disappear.
So it's a magical.
Yeah, I don't know why it's there. So then I was looking at Hudson's code because I was like, he's probably done this before. And he had a poetry that was not seen, but was just an entity. So I tried that. And that did not make a point sphere. However, it made the sphere really, really weird looking. And again, I don't know why. I'm not sure what could cause the sphere to look like that. And it's strange. So I need to keep looking into this, because I don't know, A-frame is weird and everything I try just has a strange outcome that is, I don't understand. But something else I was working on was having a way, because from last week I did a web server that you could try it on a computer. Then the question was, can you try that from like a phone or a VR headset on the same network? The answer is yes, but you have to follow these steps. This is just copied and pasted from Stack Overflow because it was helpful. You have to change the port, networking stuff, and then find your local IP address. And then once you have that, you can just type in your local IP address with this port, and then you can access the web server from other devices, which will be very good for validating. That means I can just run the web server on my computer and open it up on a VR headset and just test it.
That's cool. That's cool.
VR. Okay, me?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't need the
Okay.
thing or anything. I do want to get this text out. So. Who doesn't know who Jarek is?
I don't know,
Sure.
Jerry.
Okay.
Question.
Okay, so. Long story short, Jarek used to be a grad student in the geography department who just graduated this past year. He now works in the CNRE Office of Recruitment. He is our assistant director of recruitment, more focused on localized recruitment of how do we say pull transfer students and people in undecided majors and other like indecisive people like I was into coming into our one of our majors in the college. So that's the long story short, is that's who Jarek is. I'm a ambassador for the college as well. So like that's why I not only knew Jarek before, but now I like have to work with him respective sort of thing. No, love Jarek, it's awesome. What Jarek is doing, or he's getting ready to do now as a part of his job though, is he is wanting to make, I don't know if any of y'all have been like gone through and seen basically our recruitment process in terms of like when students come in, we have a whole presentation that they give or that we give in terms of why CNRE is great and talk about all the different majors. But what he also wants to do on top of that is make a video for each major dedicated to who they are, what they do, showing all of the awesome things that, you know, our students are doing so that people are like, oh yeah, I want to do that. I want to go here and, you know, basically get them to come join us. So, oh, I recorded that. Oops, let's not send that to Jarek. Jarek reached out to me earlier this week specifically about thinking what we as Neil could do for geography and GIS things. So he's just kind of thrown it to us in terms of what we could do. Like I'm sure there will be plenty of drone shots in there. But I wasn't sure if there was anything specific that we could do also to incorporate it there. Like I'm sure we get things going on with the build team and also with the VR scene, and it slowly comes into fruition. But just wanted to put it out there on your radar that he's looking for things to film. And if y'all are okay with being that camera sort of thing, but supposed to come and get ideas of things that we could do. So I'm like, we can do drones. We can make, I don't know, Pinkle said something to the extent of maybe printing or doing, oh gosh, using the projector, not printer, and scanning it on and doing like 3D maps. Like that way, especially the one with like the state of Virginia map under there for elevation and whatnot. But yeah, I'm just putting that out there.
Who even talked to me about like wanting to capture the when we fly,
Mhm.
and I just told him that you guys do it weekly.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's so
Right.
much weekly. We probably should do it again. Yeah,
one time we could like
need to.
we
Hearing stuff.
definitely, yeah. But
Dr. probably has like more ideas.
yeah, and he's gotten in contact with Dr. Mingle, but because again, I work with Jarek, it's like. I got back from my trip to Indianapolis for recruitment things, and he's like, hey, hopefully that went well. Help me with, you know, video things. I'm like, I just got back. I am behind. So you're gonna go in the back burner, but I will mention it to people here. So. Woohoo.
You could do stuff for him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you wanna be on camera, Allison?
I could.
Yes, I don't.
Nope.
I don't.
So let's get it.
Yay!
The one thing I did do was I finished my project proposal, I think, sent it to Dr. Pingle. We're still waiting on